I'm George. I'm an addict. Hey, everybody. I love Narcotics Anonymous. It pains me to share, a little bit that I'm from Fort Lauderdale now. All my Bucks County peeps are in the house. Yeah. But it's been a dream come true. Beyond wildest dreams, I really had no idea that we would be, down here this quick and things would unfold the way they did. Um, you said I get to pick a topic, and I guess for the last year, really the theme that's been going on in my life is accepting where I'm at, and getting out of the way. When I look back over, the toughest times in recovery were when I didn't think that what was going on was, let's say, it wasn't fair. Why is this happening to me? Uh, you know, this isn't what I expected. And a lot of times, um, everything works out the way it's supposed to be, and I wind up, you know, living. And when we talk beyond wildest dreams, well, I'm not living the expectations that I have. I'm living a completely different way of life than I thought I ever would, and I'm really happy doing it. Like so. Uh, you know, I would like to talk a little bit about the last year. So, uh, there's a couple people here from my area, but my home group was Life at 11. It was Saturday night, 11 p.m. And my favorite part was at midnight, we celebrated clean time. And, and there would be people that would show up that are celebrating on Sunday. And, 1 minute after midnight, they're picking up their key tag. And I don't know, that always rocked me, man. I just like that. I thought that was really cool that we were able to do that. And then at the end of the meeting, we would read the Just for Today for Sunday. I was part of that group for 9.5 years. I also like to, I'm a late night guy. Part of my early recovery was attending a midnight meeting every week, for a long time. And I always, I like that, I enjoyed the people that attend those meetings, but when I was looking for a home group about 10 years ago, uh, I told my sponsor I had my kids were teenagers, and I was having trouble making a commitment to one night a week, because like they were in they were in marching band, and there were parades and contests, competitions rather, and football games, and it was really hard to figure out where I was going to be and when, what was a good night, and there really didn't seem to be any. And then somebody asked me to join the 11 o'clock meeting, and what I realized that when I left for the meeting, everybody was in bed before I left. And so I talked to my sponsor about it. And, one of the things his biggest saying is if it's not practical, it's not spiritual. So that seemed to, work out pretty well for me. And I made some really good relationships in that home group. And they're not ending, they just change. And also, one of the things I looked in this room, and there's people in this room that I've known for over 30 years, over 40 years. There's people in this room that I've known about 10 years. One of the things that I thank God for the people in my life today. But as I'm looking around the room, is how many people impacted my recovery that are here today. And part of my prayers are I thank God for the people in my life that aren't here today, who walked that path with me, that helped me become who I am today. And like it, and there's a lot of people. There's my first sponsor was probably 30 years older than me, maybe even more. I don't, I'd have to do the math. But he hasn't been here for a long time, but he definitely impacted who I was. But so did a lot of other people. Um, you know, Some of you, you know, may not know, but I was involved with the writing of the basic text, and I traveled to some of the conferences, and you know, was a member of a couple different literature committees. Um, and one of the things that we talked about when we were part of, like in that process of putting our basic text together, was that we were writing this literature for addicts that hadn't picked up yet, uh, addicts, no, addicts that hadn't gotten clean yet, addicts who haven't picked up yet, and addicts who haven't been born yet. And you know, like I've got to live long enough to see, you know, all those people recover using the basic text, and you know, and there was a lot of people that were part of that aren't here anymore. And I'm always grateful when I hear people share about how the basic text changed their life. I think all those people that participated in it, and sometimes I get tears in my eyes because not just that I miss them, but I'm just so grateful to be able to see the fruits of our labor. And you know, and I like, I'm just fortunate, you know, that I've been around, that I stayed alive that long to be able to experience it. Um, you know, I haven't always, you know, in my recovery, I've had a lot of ups and downs in my recovery program, and you know, Danny's in here. You know, like 10 and a half years ago, Danny came out to my house to interview me for some well, interview. That's his excuse to get in, but really to steal my archives is what he was trying to do. But um, but at that point, I wasn't involved with the Narcotics Anonymous, and you know, I had a lot of reasons, but none of them were good. But you know, I was convinced that that at the it was a slow process. It wasn't actually a conscious decision. It was something that happened over time, and then I started going through the step process in the beginning. Um, there was a lot of hope and purpose in my life, and as you know, as I was going through a period where, you know, I was raising three kids and we were both working full time, and life was crazy, and Narcotics Anonymous started taking a back seat. Very slowly but surely, I started uh, uh, that void started coming back, and the hope started leaving in my life, and my morals started changing, lowering. And I remember I started thinking maybe there was something wrong with me. Okay, you know, and you know, psychologically, you know, and you know, and slowly things were getting worse, and that's about the time that Danny stopped in. I remember asking myself, I used to have so much hope in my life, like how do I get that back? Like what, you know, and thinking maybe I'll make a meeting, and I like would go on the internet at like 7:30 at night, and the meeting started all at 7 o'clock, and I'd be, oh well, maybe I'll check it out tomorrow, you know, and weeks would go by before I'd even have the thought again, you know. But when Danny came over, it kind of changed. You know, it was a God shot, I guess. You know, I like to, you know, look at, like to give God credit for, you know, things in my life. I certainly gave him plenty of credit when things didn't work out the way that I wanted them to. You know, so you know it's fair that I give him credit when things do. But one of the things that happened during the interview that he was doing is my kids had asked me why they were interviewing me, and they said they seem to think that you're important, and I said, well, I used to attend these meetings. And my daughter, of course, you know, like she's like 11, 12. Well, how come you don't go anymore? I go, well, I got to take care of, I got a special needs son. I've been a stay-at-home dad for like 15 years now. My son has autism. He's nonverbal. He has mental retardation. He has epilepsy. But he is the joy of my life, and in my whole family's life. I said, well, I got to take care of Steve. And my daughter said, well, you know, they seem to really like you. If you want to start going to meetings, I can watch Steve while you go. And I'm like, oh, I don't. And she said, we're old enough now. We can do that. You can go if you want. And then my wife said, yeah, it might be a good idea. And, and it kind of like, I looked at her and I said, what do you mean? And she said, well, I'm just saying. And I'm like, yeah, no, I know what you're saying. I need some kind of help and I better get it in a hurry. Um, and I started going back to meetings. Actually, it was my 34th anniversary was my first meeting back, and I really felt awkward. I felt uncomfortable. I hadn't been to a meeting in a while. Then I started, seeing all the people, like the newer people that had gotten clean when I wasn't there, and I wasn't there to help them. And I started being filled with guilt and shame. And of course, I, wasn't working a program, so I was struggling with all those emotions, and it probably took me a year to get to where I started feeling comfortable again, going to meetings. So knowing what, having worked the steps, lived the steps, and practiced all the suggestions that we suggest on a regular basis throughout periods of my recovery, and how that spiritual void is filled with the relationship with the God of my understanding, and how there's hope in my life, and the opposite of that, when I don't do those things, like this program works when I practice it, and I have to take action. So I made a commitment back then that I didn't want to feel that way anymore. I didn't want to feel that way in recovery anymore. Like, I was running out of things to use that, would make me feel, or make me not feel, is really what it, but that also came with more guilt and shame, and like I just couldn't keep piling enough shit on top of the shit. So I have a sponsor. I sponsor people. I do daily step work. I'm currently on a 9th step. Yesterday, me and my sponsor did a Zoom thing, and when we did some letters that I had for some people that had died, that I wanted to make amends to. I read the 9th step, and it works how and why in the basic text every day. I read the Just for Today daily meditation every day. I read it twice. I don't always get it the first time, and the second time it seems to translate itself. I do a daily 10 step. Now, again, we talk about, I mentioned that it's not practical, it's not spiritual. When I first started doing my 10 step 10 years ago, my kids were living in the house, and my wife, and so it was like 5 of us. And Dad would start writing his 10 step at the end of the night, and everybody would want to help. What are you doing, Dad? Oh, I'm doing my inventory. Remember when you yelled at me? Don't forget, you were rude, you're arrogant, and I'm like, this is like family 10 step, so I would wait till they all go to bed, and then I'd fall asleep waiting. So I said to my sponsor, at 8 o'clock in the morning, there'd be nobody in the house for hours. So I said to my sponsor, if I waited in the morning, I think it might, it might work. So he said, well, if what you're doing is not practical, then, it's not spiritual. Let's try something different, So I started doing it in the morning, and I would do my 10th step, then I would do my praying, and do my praying sometimes while I'm doing laundry or vacuuming, and, just tooling around the house, and one of the things for me is I like doing a routine, because for me, if I ask myself, do I feel like doing my 10th step now? Or do I feel like reading now? Or do I feel like praying now? My answer to myself is going to be, why don't I do it later? Okay. And later, it's like trying to get clean tomorrow. It doesn't happen, so I set a routine where in the morning I get up, I get a cup of coffee, I start doing my reading, I start doing my writing. Shortly after that, I'll do my praying. And I want to be vigilant about, Now, when I do reading and when I do writing, okay, we talk about living this program and applying these principles in all our affairs. Okay, so it's not about how much you write or how often, but or how you read. But one of the things that I was taught in early recovery is that as I'm reading or I'm writing, I'm asking myself, how can I apply what I'm reading? How can I apply what I'm learning into my daily living? How can I use this to be a better person? So like that's the purpose of the step work. It's not the homework assignment so I can hand it into my sponsor and get them to grade it for me, or to give me an attaboy for doing 10 days in a row. Um, you know, um, for me, I get self-worth out of practicing vigilantly, the step process and the NA program. Um, you know, um, it doesn't have to be a major thing every day, but that I'm consistent with my program. And so that's how I live today. Um, I get done doing that. I usually, me and Moose go to the dog park. Then we either go for a bike ride, we go to the beach. But life is, it's good. I want to share when I moved down here. One of the things that was really awesome is that there's a meeting a block and a half from my house. So like I didn't realize that I had any expectations until I realized that I had expectations. But I'm picturing me and my son, his nickname's Moose, me and him being in our little NA golf cart and cruising a block and a half down the street, going to meetings. They have a meeting every night at 10 o'clock. They have a midnight meeting Friday and Saturday night. And they a couple times during the week, they have, I think, a 7 or 7:30 meeting. I haven't made that one yet. But because of COVID, and the amount of people that go to the meetings, I had only been doing online meetings, and these were outdoor meetings, which I thought would be good. One of the things that I had to realize is that I can't expect people um, to be where I'm at. I have to be comfortable with where I'm at and let everybody be where they're at. I was uncomfortable attending the meetings for a long time, and now I have a system. I have where I sit, and I can make certain meetings outdoors, which I really like attending the physical ones. I like the Zoom meetings too, but when there's a meeting, when there's 70 addicts right down the street meeting, it's hard not to want to be there, man. I want to be hanging out. Um, and listening and sharing, um, you know, I know I love this program. I'm grateful for all the people that are in my life, and I want to thank everybody that showed up here. But I'm definitely one that I'm want to remain teachable. I'm a work in progress. I've made a lot of progress, but there's still a lot to go. And if you're not sure, like you think maybe I've arrived or something, let me pull my wife in for 5 minutes and she could tell you all the things that I need to work on. That was one of the things, one of the mistakes I made when I was going through my 6-step. My sponsor said to ask 3 friends. I asked Danny. Danny was one of them. Asked 3 friends what my 3 most glaring defects were. And I at 5, I told her my sponsor said only 3. She had a whole book she was going to give me. But it's like I'm working to be a little bit better than I was yesterday. And if I keep doing that, that miracle keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. That's all I got. Thanks for letting me share.